When I found out that my partner had betrayed me and had intimacy with my sister, I ran to the bar to get drunk, and accidentally spent an intimate night with a stranger. What's worse, the next day my parents sent me to the werewolf territory, because my sister offended the werewolves and needed me to take the blame for her. But I was surprised to find that the man I spent an intimate night with was actually the werewolf king. My mother said to me when my parents asked me to take the blame for my sister Arya, "Werewolves rarely kill their prisoners. They'll let you go after you explain it was all an accident," though her voice betrayed her own doubts. I had always known my parents didn't love me as much as they loved Lyra, but their cold indifference, their willingness to throw me to the wolves, literally, still managed to shatter me. "You seem to have forgotten something," I said, my anger bubbling to the surface. "I am the future alpha of this pack. What happens to the pack when I'm gone? Who will lead them? Once you leave, Lyra will step up as alpha," my father said, dismissing me with a wave of his hand. "She'll marry Ethan and raise their child in peace. Since you rejected him, he's moved on, you're no longer needed." The depth of betrayal hit me like a knife to the chest. The pack will never accept Lyra as alpha. I shouted, "I've worked my whole life to earn their respect. They'll never follow her." My mother stepped forward and slapped me across the face. "Enough," she cried. "If the elders won't accept Lyra as alpha, they'll have to believe she's Arya." A sudden knock at the door silenced us. Two tall men entered, their imposing presence instantly filling the room. From the way my parents reacted, I knew they were the Lycan enforcers sent to take me. "The Wolf King demands the presence of the one responsible for the incident," one of them said, his voice deep and gravelly. Without hesitation, both my parents pointed at me. "Take her," they said, their faces cold and unfeeling. "No, please. What have I done to deserve this?" I screamed, desperation clawing at my throat. But my parents refused to meet my eyes. The enforcers bound my hands and dragged me from the room. I struggled and screamed, but their grip was like iron. My cries grew hoarse as we crossed the borders of the Eternum pack and entered Lycan territory. The towering Lycan fortress loomed ahead, a symbol of my impending doom. I was shoved inside and forced to kneel before him. "Your Majesty," one of the enforcers said, bowing deeply, "we brought the one responsible for the crime." I felt the king's gaze on me, heavy and unrelenting. A chill ran down my spine as I lowered my head, too numb to speak. "What do you have to say for yourself?" the king demanded, his deep, commanding voice echoing through the chamber. "Nothing," I replied, my voice hollow. "If you want my life as punishment, take it." I was done fighting. Lyra had won. If this was how it was going to end, so be it. The king's voice boomed again, this time filled with fury. "Do you even understand the gravity of your crime? And you have nothing to say?" I stayed silent, too exhausted and defeated to respond. The room was deathly still until the king roared, "Uldric." One of the enforcers stepped forward, grabbing me by the hair and tilting my head back. I felt the cold steel of a blade press against my throat. But just as the blade was about to strike, my eyes locked with the king's. His crimson gaze suddenly softened, shifting to a deep, familiar sea blue. Wait, I had seen those eyes before. The king's face twisted with confusion, then something else, recognition. "Stop," he barked, his voice filled with authority. The sword clattered to the ground as the enforcer immediately obeyed. Before I could process what was happening, the king stepped forward and pulled me into his arms. "Mine," he growled, his voice low and possessive, his arms wrapped tightly around me, his face buried in my hair. I froze, too stunned to react. What was happening? The king pulled back slightly, his piercing gaze scanning my face, and my stomach? His expression shifted, something primal flashing in his eyes. "Do I smell my pup in your womb?" he asked, his voice a mix of shock and wonder.